I wanted to elaborate further on nihilism in the organizational or cultural sense of the word. I see nihilism as a reaction to a constrictive organization, culture, or society. Every culture/organization is hierarchical. The more advanced a civilization, the sharper the hierarchy is. This results in an inevitable reaction to the organization. Nihilism. Nihilism is a result of frustration in society. This frustration takes two forms. The first form is that from people who feel that their talents are not being fully utilized by the system. They tend to the individualistic or anarchist form of nihilism. The individualistic form of nihilism wants to be free from the current set of values so that they can create new ones. They call this form of nihilism freedom. They want to be free from the values of their culture. Men want to test their abilities against some form of adversity. This is why many young soldiers actively seek out war. They want to test themselves in the years of training that they have endured against a challenge. Today it is more difficult for many men to creatively express themselves in the arts, engineering, etc., because our society is so fully developed. Men who sigh at the lack of empty space for themselves to create. They dream of the current order collapsing so that they can create something new. The opposite form of nihilism, which is the collectivist form of nihilism, cannot meet the standards that the current system has established. They feel worthless and inferior because they cannot get meaning for their own lives via the system. The collectivist form of nihilism wants to dissolve values by making all things equal. If everything is equal, then nothing is valuable. If you notice, both forms of nihilism derive their personal meaning and value in life via the system. I'm still playing with these ideas, but it seems to me that both forms of nihilism are inherently narcissistic. Most people mistakenly believe narcissism is some sort of self-worship. Actually, narcissism is a complete lack of self and a lack of identity. These people have no ego, no self, no I. They never ask themselves who they are and have no connection to their own identity. Most people today in the West derive their identity via the system. They see a ranking of professions, which we all must strive for, supposedly, the highest and ultimate form of which is fame and fortune. Psychologically, narcissists develop due to extreme abuse as children. Their parents constantly criticized them and did not allow them to have their own voice or express themselves personally. This can also be applied to the modern Western world. We have all been bombarded with propaganda from birth on the importance of tolerance and diversity, that it is immoral to judge others, or in other words, to be conscious of reality, and it is an unforgivable sin to identify with your race, sex, or class. This lack of being rooted in identity leads to a narcissistic society, where value is derived externally, typically via the system. It also leads to a complete and utter inability to empathize with other races or cultures. Let's look around for a moment and consider the modern world. Every city, every town, and every village today all look exactly the same in the United States. Life is no longer exciting for people because everything has been taken care of for them. Food has been standardized with global franchises like McDonald's or KFC or Pizza Hut. Hollywood, with their several $100 million budget movies, is risk-averse. Movies are now entirely standardized, simply rehashing successful works of the past. Roads are standardized. The cars are standardized with government bureaucracies. Drugs are standardized. Our clothing is all standardized by huge corporations, as well as our own thoughts. Our thoughts are standardized by the education system to inculcate parents' children with the correct, quote-unquote, thoughts so that they will grow up to be a good citizen. In other words, good slaves. This means that a man's own family is no longer his property, but is the property of the state or the society. This lack of meaningful control over one's own family is, I believe, the main reason for the decline in fertility of the white race. Men are no longer allowed to be men. They must submit their own personal ways of expression and meaning for their family. They must submit to the state. The meaninglessness of the modern West finds a response in its music and art. Modern movies are increasingly loud, jam full of absurd action and violence, because it is one of the few things that makes people feel alive today. Modern music is nerve-exciting, with people feeling like their senses are being attacked, since every other aspect of life is now under the control of the state and or the employer or school. Many look to diversions to avoid looking at reality, like drugs. The modern Western world is obsessed with extremely refined technological progress, but this has come at a cost of our ability to express ourselves creatively or to act as true men. We have enslaved ourselves. Everything that man does to nature has unintended consequences. Marriage has the unintended consequence of allowing weaker men to propagate their genes. This wasn't damaging to society until the advent of modern medicine. Now anyone, no matter how sickly or stupid, can and does survive, propagating low-quality strains and bringing down the overall quality of the gene pool. As the West advances into greater technological progress, its unintended consequences are felt in society. Homosexuality, drug use in order to avoid reality. Increasingly violent and ubiquitous entertainment are all results of this. Liberals latch onto these trends and attempt to moralize the social decay into a social good. They call it equality, marriage equality, racial equality, gender equality, class equality, and next it will be transgender rights. Both of these forms of nihilism are with us until the end. They will not disappear, so long as some men feel excluded or constrained by the system. It is an inevitable consequence of an advanced civilization. Both forms of nihilism, the individualistic and collectivist forms, are today called globalization and secular humanism. Globalization is the attempt of individuals to pursue money without any constraints. One of the only semi-masculine fields still available today, business. Secular humanism is the attempt to pacify the unintended consequences of technological development, with laws and rules and regulations that mitigate the anger and envy of those who cannot join the system due to their inferior genes. Negroes are an example of this. The Negro race, being far less intelligent and with little or no self-control, has no place in this advanced society. Its only avenue is to tear down and cause chaos. If we look at many American cities today, they seem almost frozen in the 1960s. This is because the white race left the inner city after the chaos of the race riots and never returned. Just as bad money drives out good, so too do low-quality men drive out high-quality men, especially in a society where the government will not allow discrimination or a proactive approach to the problems that we all face.